for more is Victoria Churchill, a political commentator with Young Voices. Victoria, welcome. Great to have you. So let's start with the shutdown. Both sides blaming each other. Victoria, were there any political winners in this?
Well, if you listen to the president and the speech that he made late last night in the Oval Office, he still believes that the Democrats still bear the brunt of the blame for the shutdown. He has called this throughout the entire time of the shutdown, of course, those 43 days. He called it the Schumer shutdown. And actually, it's interesting because other voices on the left, groups like, for example, the College Democrats in both New York and nationwide have called on Schumer to step down. He's faced pressure from other people in his own party, even groups like Our Revolution, which is a more Democrat, socialist, Bernie Sanders aligned type group. They're calling on Schumer to step down because they believe that he is a failed leader, particularly because you had 8 Democrats in the Senate who sided with Republicans to pass this funding package. And then you also had 6 Democrats in the House. And after President Trump signed the bill, he kind of implored the American people to remember the shutdown, again, calling it the Democrat shutdown. He called it upon the American people to remember this come the midterms. I'm not sure if that's necessarily the best play because public polling has shown a little bit of the opposite, that more people, at least that have responded to polling, blame Republicans for the shutdown, not Democrats. And I think if we look at the election results just from last week, that also kind of goes to show that when it comes to elections, Democrats might have been a little bit more motivated by this issue to vote against the people who they thought were causing harm.
Yeah, to your point, there are several polls showing President Trump's approval rating is actually taking a hit since the start of the shutdown. Victoria, why do you think that is, and how should the GOP handle this? What should they be talking about moving forward?
Sure. I mean, I think it's interesting to point out that polling has obviously never been very favorable to President Trump. And I think that the kinds of people that are more likely to respond to polls are probably people that are more critical versus or more approving. So I think that is one thing to note. But I also think it's interesting to note that a lot of Republicans, particularly even on the House floor yesterday, before they passed this legislation, they were throwing those arrows at their Democrat colleagues. Democrats tried to frame this as Republicans were on vacation because the House, pretty much suspended business throughout the entirety of the shutdown because the House tried to say, we did our job. We passed this funding package. It got caught up in the Senate. But I think there's definitely a few House Republicans, particularly those that are in vulnerable districts, that are going to be a little bit nervous. I know Virginia is one state that I pay close attention to. I used to cover Virginia politics almost exclusively, and I still keep quite a significant finger on the pulse down there. And we're looking at, for example, the re-entry of Elaine Luria into electoral politics. She's a former congresswoman who got beat out in the Biden midterms by current Representative Jen Kiggans. But it looks like Luria is shaping up for a rematch, and that's a district that swings kind of, in those midterm kind of pendulum shifts that you expect that are to the party that is opposition of the president. Those seats have been picked up. So that's definitely a district that's really one of those bellwethers that a lot of people are going to be looking at nationally, probably going to be spending quite a bit of time and money there.
Yeah, there's a lot at stake in the 2026 midterms, so we'll see. While I have you here, Victoria, I want to talk about the upcoming vote on the Jeffrey Epstein files. Several Republicans are expected to join Democrats and demand the release of all the materials related to the convicted sex offender. Victoria, is it a bad thing for the White House to see all of this information come to light? And are these congressmen and women taking a risk by joining Democrats?
Well, I think if you looked at some of the reporting that was happening last night, the White House was definitely nervous about this discharge petition, which would be, will be bringing this vote out of committee straight to the House floor. There were, of course, 4 Republicans who sided with Democrats to advance this discharge petition. That's, of course, been Thomas Massie, who's been spearheading it, along with Representative Lauren Boebert, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Those have been kind of those focal people, particularly on the Republican side. But we've even seen new representatives. Tim Burchett is one that tried to force the vote right there on the House floor yesterday. He's of Tennessee. He's potentially looking at maybe like a Senate run, so he may not necessarily be kind of thinking about at least a future in the House is his political future. And then Representative Don Bacon of Nebraska, he's of course the one that is talked about quite a bit because Nebraska splits their electoral votes in presidential years. And so the district is always one that's in contention. And he's actually not seeking re-election. So he's another one that doesn't really have a political future to contend with,
Yeah.
that may be open to, supporting even those of his colleagues that signed on to the discharge petition. So those are two votes definitely to be looking closely at next week.
Yeah, that's a tough district there in Nebraska. It can go either way. All right, Victoria Churchill, commentator with Young Voices. Wonderful to have you. Thank you, Victoria.